Hello, everyone. It's Sibyl Star, and I am here to give the astrology forecast for the Gemini new moon, which occurs on June 17th at 27 degrees of Gemini at 9:38 p.m. Pacific. Okay, I'm calling this the language of light. This is a very expansive, consciousness expanding kind of an energy. All right, first I'm going to show you the chart before I forget, because if I get too deep into the reading, I may forget. All right. So here is the actual chart. So, like I said, it occurs on June 17th, 2023, 9:38 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. And so we have the sun and the moon at 26 degrees of Gemini, 43 minutes. Okay. Now, this is the Neptune is 27 degrees of Pisces, 38 minutes. It's in a square, and a square is a challenge. And we also have Ceres over here, and Ceres is a dwarf planet. She used to be considered an asteroid. Now she's a dwarf planet. And she's at 29 degrees of Virgo. So there's like a T-square right here. What you do not see is over here, opposite the sun at 27 degrees, 16 minutes, is what is called the Galactic Center. And this is a very super significant point, and we're really beginning to really know and understand more about it. And so I'm going to be talking about that as well. Okay, what we've also got going on here is the Gemini, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, is at 11 degrees Gemini, its own sign, and in a square to Saturn. Excuse me. Let's see here. Saturn here is, darn it. Okay, Saturn here is at 7 degrees of Pisces. Like I said, it's square Mercury. What else have we got going on that we're going to talk about today? Pluto has retrograde. Oh, by the way, Saturn is stationary, getting ready. It's going to go retrograde actually the same day, but it's slowing down. As it has been slowing down, it's kind of like at a standstill. So this really is about a lot of focus. Okay. Pluto is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. He's moved out of Aquarius back into Capricorn, is retrograde motion. Square the nodes here at 2 degrees of Taurus, opposite the south node at 2 degrees Scorpio. I think then the last thing we're going to really talk about is we've got Venus and Mars both in Leo, and that's really significant. And Mars is also conjunct Black Moon Lilith. We're going to talk a little bit about her. All right, so now let's go back to what is actually happening. Okay, so as I said, this Gemini new moon is ruled by Mercury. You know, Mercury is the god of the mind. So Gemini, as ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's in its own sign, wants mental and intellectual stimulation. It opens our mind to new perspectives and possibilities. It allows us to detach from our emotions and expectations long enough to see the reality of what is happening in and around us. It can bring a certain level of objectivity and asks us to use our critical thinking skills. The Gemini sun, this Gemini new moon, inspires our curiosity, not only about ideas, but the people and places around us. It is the sign of communication and loves to connect with others, to share ideas and information through thinking, reading, speaking, writing, learning, and teaching. It can empower us to expand our knowledge and our understanding of our place in the world. Okay. Now, Gemini is also known as the heretic. There are no sacred cows with Gemini. When Gemini comes along, it says, question everything you think you know. Okay. What is it that Socrates said? The beginning of wisdom is the recognition of how little I actually know. Okay. or something like that. I think I paraphrased it. Anyway, and I also want to bring up that Gemini makes us laugh at ourselves. It's as being the heretic. You know, in the ancient times, the court jester was the only one who could criticize the king, and he did it through making fun. He made fun of him. He poked fun at him. And so Gemini brings in, and with all this Leo, because Leo has this, you know, we've got this Mars and Venus both in Leo. And, you know, one of the shadow sides of Leo is kind of taking one's own self-importance too seriously. Well, this new moon in Gemini is poking holes in that. Okay. All right. Now, so this new moon is also conjunct the fixed star Polaris. And Polaris is the North Star. You know, and the North Star has very special significance. You know, people have always navigated by the stars. So I feel like this new moon is telling us to let the stars guide us through these times of great transition. Okay, that the stars are, as they say, as above, so below. Then they are sending us messages. Now, as I said, this new moon is also opposite what is called the Galactic Center. And the Galactic Center, they say, is the connection to the source of all creation. That on the other side of the Galactic Center is the great central sun. Now, the Galactic Center is at 27 degrees, 16 minutes of Sagittarius now. And in a more physical understanding, they say that the Galactic Center is actually a black hole, but it is much more than that on all other dimensions. It is said to be the place of our spiritual center. And when activated, it can inspire us to open to more of our divinity and remember who we are. It is a link to the quantum field and brings solutions, upgrades, and evolution. I have also just recently understood that we can also access the great central sun through our own sun, because all of the suns, which are stars, are connected to the great central sun. And of course, you know, this new moon is also happening just within a few days of the summer solstice, where the sun is at its peak and its most powerful. So this is a really important time to receive those solar rays, that solar energy. Okay. Neptune is, like I showed you, square the sun. And whenever Neptune is around, it says that the veil of illusion, you know, is thick, that all is not as it seems, and especially in the outer world. The Gemini new moon says to question everything that comes in, because there's a huge drama happening with many players in the external world. And, you know, like I said, it's opposite the Galactic Center as well, which makes a T-square. And I feel like one of the meanings of this is saying to trust your own intuition about what is really true. Your heart knows what is true. There's a virtual show going on in the external world, and to not allow yourself to engage with it as what it appears to be keeps changing, and allow yourself to see beyond the veil of illusion. I feel like this great central sun, the energy of it is coming in and shining the inner light of illumination. And I'm going to quote Vivienne Chauvet here. She had a beautiful quote. She says, you know, the great central sun shines the inner light of illumination. And so you can see beyond the veils of illusion, to see the bigger picture of a more divine picture, to reconcile this fragmented reality and perception into a much bigger design. I feel like the veil is falling. The ability, even though it's thicker, there's the great central sun is bringing in this light of illumination, so we can actually see through the veil, not only in the external world, but in the greater reality, and remembering who we are. Okay. When you can see the bigger picture, it allows for more acceptance and objectivity, to allow for what is and to follow the flow of your own energy, as it will lead you to where you need to be. Okay. And of course, you know, I feel like too that we may be shifting realities well, they say we're always shifting realities. It's just that we will become more aware of it. So it can be disorienting. We're at a time where subtle energies are intersecting with the material world in a heightened way. And the 3D reality matrix is intersecting with the 5D reality matrix in our own consciousness, because this is where it really begins, is in our own consciousness. Okay. And to be open to the higher frequencies that may be coming into your consciousness through waking and dreaming life. New perspectives arising from larger realities. We could also call this a paradigm shift. The paradigm is really beginning to shift. We might see our activation of our own spiritual technologies, such as increased clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, psychic sensitivity, and all of the different technologies, telepathy especially. And with the energy from this great central sun, we can rewire our nervous system and cognitive faculties. And I feel like this image I'm sitting in front of really kind of it kind of shows the energy in a way that I feel it, because it feels like the center of this image is the great central sun, and it is surrounded by the language of light. And that is what I feel is coming through, is the universal language of light is pouring through this portal of the Galactic Center and activating our light codes within our DNA. Okay. It says cellular upgrades. And with these solar rays, we are upgrading our cellular structure and activating a new DNA template. Some say our 12-strand DNA. Now, this is a process. I mean, but I do feel that if you allow yourself, you can feel these energies pouring in. But ultimately, I think it is activating the remembrance of unity consciousness and the oneness of the universe, that each one of us are an aspect of source energy, seeing through different eyes, and remembering that we have never left source energy, and that we are source energy, having this experience of separation to grow the greater reality. And part of this process is the integration of polarity within ourselves, the light and dark within. The twins of Gemini show us the duality that lives within each of us. And when we can integrate that dark and light within, when we can own our own shadow material, we no longer project it outward. And then we stop participating in the us versus them mentality that is just happening all over. It is playing out so strongly in the external world right now. The extreme divisiveness that is occurring, and to know it's occurring because it's being manipulated. We are in this fear matrix that is aligned with the lower chakras, and it's kind of what we call, the archetypal battle of good versus evil. But to remember, they all live within us. We're creating this experience, and it's for our own growth. But we need to release these lower frequency vibrations and to not take them on and engage with them and to project them outward. For the only way to break out of the cycle is to stop engaging and to own our own stuff, okay? And to see it for what it is. And when we focus on the healing of our inner world and remember that we contain it all dark and light, was when we can integrate this polarity back into oneness or unity consciousness. Okay. It is about becoming part of something greater than ourselves, to become part of the greater reality, our conscious awareness of the greater reality as part of the shift. And another piece of it, of course, is to stay grounded to Mother Earth, as Neptune opposes Ceres. Ceres is also involved in this configuration, and Ceres is the great Greco-Roman goddess of the land, of the plants, of agriculture, of food, but she's one of the faces of Gaia. And so anchoring our energy and our spirit with Mother Gaia as well, and in our own consciousness. And I also feel like it brings out the potential for magical nature beings to make themselves known. You know, the fairies, the elves, the gnomes, you know, all the mermaids, the Sasquatch, all of them. They're, you know, they live in a different dimension. But there's this interdimensional shift, that intersection that is happening. Okay, and that's where the magic happens. It's a great time to put out your crystals, to be charged, and to do a ceremony if possible. And ultimately, the goal is the integration of these two dimensional matrices, the third dimension and the fifth dimension. And ultimately, the fifth dimension will absorb the third dimension. All right. Now, Mercury, a little more grounded material here. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and it's in its own sign, Gemini, and it's square Saturn in Pisces. And of course, Saturn brings in a challenge to be more focused and less scattered. And I would say having Saturn stationary retrograde, you know, that's really putting a lot of focus. And even though Pisces is very much about imagination and really about flow, Saturn in Pisces square this Mercury is really asking us to stay focused and less scattered. It could be a really creative time, because Saturn is what makes everything real. Without Saturn, everything is a dream. And Saturn in Pisces is very creative. It can be a very great time for writers and communicators of all times, of all types. And it's also important to remember that words create. And so be very careful how you use your words. You know, Saturn likes control, and Pisces flows right through every container Saturn tries to put it in. So it could bring up some anxiety, as there can be an inability to control our lives and to control the flow. The truth is, we just must follow the flow of our own energy and create as we go. Okay. And Mercury reminds us that words are magic. And as they say, energy follows thought, and thought creates. So be aware of what you are creating in your own life and where you focus your thoughts. And it's important to remember that worry is a prayer to create something you do not want. You know, kind of pull yourself back to the present moment, take a deep breath, you know, and then move on. Okay. Saturn in Pisces brings in inner work and a spiritual discipline. And I feel like in aspect to Mercury, it could be reminding us of sacred words, of prayers and mantras. And that not only can we, you know, create what we don't want, we can create what we do want. And with Saturn in Pisces, I feel like one of the ways is to the remembrance of sacred words, prayers, and mantras. You know, Tina Turner attributes the saying of her mantra changed her life. Okay. All right. And as we are also at the intersection of the material and subtle realms, saying your sacred words out loud impacts the external world, and saying them silently to yourself impacts your own consciousness. I just recently came across this teaching, and one of the other pieces of the teaching, as we are moving into a more telepathic state, it's really important as well to learn how to how to speak to yourself. Okay. All right. So and what I mean by that is saying your prayers silently impacts your own consciousness. And so I've started saying some of my prayers silently. All right. Venus, as I showed you, was in Leo. And, you know, Venus is the goddess of love, and she brings in self-worth and love of others. And as I said, Venus is in Leo, and where she will be until October 9th, because Venus is going to go retrograde on July 22nd at 28 degrees of Leo. Okay. And it's important to remember that this is the Feast of Mary Magdalene. There's quite a few points in this. And I'm going to be doing a short little video about this, because it really is a deep dive into the divine feminine of what this actually means. Okay. All right. But anyway, Venus in Leo is very much, she's a queen. And it was so interesting because I just read that she's traveling through something called the Beehive constellation. So she's getting an extra dose of queendom there. Okay. All right. Um, all right. So, like I said, Venus in Leo is a queen, and she knows she deserves all the abundance of the universe. She is passionate, creative, dramatic, warm-hearted, and the ultimate romantic. She loves to be adored, pampered, and admired. The shadow is that she can be overly dramatic, extravagant, and vain. Okay. Now, at the same time, Mars is traveling in Leo. Mars and Venus are both in Leo, but they're not going to be conjunct due to the retrograde motion. Mars is just simply traveling more quickly because Venus is slowing down. Anyway, Mars and Venus in Leo is super creative and fun energy. But there's also the huge potential for drama, for seriously high drama. We can already see it happening. And, I would just suggest to refrain from engaging in the drama that is happening in the external world, especially in the political realm and on so many different stages. Okay. And as we know, all is not as it seems. And so step back, get a little objectivity before you dive in, if you do decide to engage. All right. In Leo, Mars is proud, self-confident, and grand, is very highly passionate and courageous. Many entertainers have Mars in this sign, and it can give an element of charisma. The shadow can be arrogance, though. Just one other little piece. Mars is a conjunct Black Moon Lilith from June 11th to the 25th. It's exact on June 20th at 18 degrees of Leo. And I feel like it kind of lines up with some of the energy of Venus going retrograde because it has to do with the activation of the Kundalini. And the life force energy flowing through us. I feel like was preparing us for this big Venus retrograde moment. But just so you know who Lilith is, from my perspective, she's like the Hebrew version of Kali. She carries the sword of truth. She was known to be the first wife of Adam, and she's very assertive and powerful. She refused to be subjugated. But she's a wild woman also. She's a dark goddess. She's a wild woman. It's very much about releasing your inner wild woman. She stands for sexual freedom and independence. And if you have planets near this, your personal magnetism and charisma may be increased at this time. And she does not like to be restricted by social conventions. And once again, the shadow is high drama. There's a lot of drama going on. All right. Pluto has retrograded back into Capricorn. He's now at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Once again, it's the anaretic degree, but it's going to go back just 27 degrees and almost to the exact minute of the Pluto return of the United States chart. So that's happening. It's really, really big. But Pluto, 29 degrees, digging deep again into what no longer has life force. It's like the snake shedding its skin. It's a transmutation. Pluto is the excavator. He's like the roto-rooter. He's the excavation of corruption, and in whatever he's impacting. When it was in Sagittarius, it was religion. And Capricorn is very much about our public institutions and those who hold the power. Okay. And we are in the process of a transformation here in the United States with this Pluto return, because the excavation, like I said, is a roto-rooter. It's just going deep. Know that it's going deep, and it's clearing out these deep levels of fear and low vibrational frequency emotions that keep us attached to the fear and control matrix. That it is part of the release process. It's not for the faint of heart, but with honesty, we can root out this corruption and create the world we want. And it's, of course, impacting our personal lives, and especially if you have planets anywhere near 29 degrees, planets or points anywhere near 29 degrees of Capricorn. It's It goes back over the same area until the deeper issues are brought to light so they can be transmuted, released and transmuted. Okay. For healing to happen, it needs to come to the light, and which means our conscious awareness, so that we can look at it, heal it, and make a different choice. And it's also square the nodes of the moon, which it will continue. And the nodes of the moon have to do with the point of destiny. It's like our future depends on our choices, so choose wisely. Okay. Saturn has gone retrograde. It actually goes retrograde the same day as the new moon. It's stationary, which means it's really focusing like a laser beam, and then it's going to start appear to move backwards. And it, it retrogrades 4.5 months every year. And when Saturn stations and turns retrograde, it's best to slow down and consider your responsibilities, because Saturn really wants focus. Like any places where you have distractions or things that are keeping you from being focused, it's going to bring them up, and maybe they may need to leave your conscious awareness so you can focus on what's really important. And it's a natural time as well to review our obligations and reconsider our personal plans. We might need to, something may be out of alignment that needs to come back into alignment, okay? And some level of withdrawal is possible now. It slows us down, it slows the process down, but it makes us focus and get it right, okay? All right, I'm gonna close this reading with the Sabian symbol because it's also a very interesting one. It says the Sabian symbol, and those of you who don't know what the Sabian symbols are, there was a psychic named Elsie Wheeler who had a vision for every degree of the zodiac, and I find that these visions are sometimes incredibly helpful, adding to a better understanding of what it is that the stars are trying to say. All right, anyway, a young gypsy emerging from the woods gazes at far off cities. And so this can mean dreaming of becoming part of something far away, preparing to leave what is familiar and move into a new world, new perspectives arising from larger realities. Well, I believe all of that is happening. And I feel like the dream of a new world is beginning to come into view. And when we allow for the larger spiritual perspective and the universal language of light codes that are coming in to act our DNA, we will remember who we are. And as I recently heard, and I thought this was just so great, it resonated as such truth. This is the memory, is that we are 99% divine and 1% human. And when we remember this is when the shift will happen within each one of us. And as we do, we will soon reach a critical mass for the shift of Mother Earth and all of humanity to take place. Namaste. Many blessings to you in this time of the Gemini new moon. And if you like this video, please check, like, and subscribe. And if you're interested in a reading, my information is in the description box below. All right. Blessings to all. Have a wonderful month.